before me, we all started off with a story, so I thought I'd start off with a story of my own. About a year ago today, I was shopping for groceries with someone really dear to my heart. Don't guess any names, because I'll deny them all. And he asked me, "Hey Jess, do you know where these eggs come from?" And I stood there sarcastically and said, "Well, chickens, duh." And he became really serious at that moment, and what he told me struck a really deep chord in me. It made me really wonder where those eggs came from. What kind of chickens laid them? Who was I advocating, and what kind of industry was I voting for? And something that Michael Pollan said in the documentary Food Inc. Anyone here seen Food Inc. before? Okay, a couple of them, good. He said that the way we eat has changed more in the past 50 years than the previous 10,000. But yet we still use the imagery of rustic America to sell all our products. Big red barns, rolling green hills, cows on a pasture, farmers tilling mulch. But in reality, there's been a veil that's been dropped between us and where our food really comes from. And today I'm going to take that veil away, and I'm going to show you the true face of the American food industry. CAFO. CAFO is an acronym. It stands for Confined Animal Feeding Operations. A CAFO is a facility where thousands of the same species are confined and they're fed and fattened for the sole purpose of growing them as quickly as possible and at the least possible cost. But the question is, at what cost? There are currently 15,500 operating CAFOs in the United States today. The animal that first produced or developed the CAFO was the poultry industry. Everyone here familiar with Tyson dinosaur chicken nuggets growing up? Okay, that's my babysitter always used to make me on a day-to-go basis. Well, they own the majority of the meat market, and they own about 22% of the chicken industry. This is a Tyson CAFO chicken. There's about 30,000 chickens in one facility. This one's actually a lot nicer than most because it has windows. And from the minute that these chickens are hatched until the day that they're slaughtered, they're fattened on feed full of steroids and antibiotics. I'm going to show you a quick video from Food Inc. itself to outline the differences between a pasture-raised chicken and a CAFO chicken.
World. The industry changed the entire way that chicken are raised. Birds are now raised and slaughtered in half the time they were 50 years ago, but now they're twice as big. People like to eat white meat, so they redesigned the chicken to have large breasts.
The way they redesigned these chickens was, like I said before was implementing steroids and antibiotics into their feed. As the broiler chicken industry increased, it really made a lot of pressure on the other meat markets to increase their produce and reduce their costs as well, which leads us into the pork industry. Smithfield is currently the largest pork producer in the entire world, 28%. But shortly after it follows 4 more other meat producers, leaving 27% to others, which includes smaller corporations and small sustainable farms. I remember in high school, we used to sit in the front lawn of our school and we'd watch the cars drive by. We were about 20 minutes from the Smithfield headquarters in Virginia. And these 2 huge semi-trucks would come by at 12:30 on the dot, full of pigs. And about 3:30 in the afternoon, they drive back in front of our school, just empty. And all the kids would make all these little jokes like, "Oh, this little piggy went to the market, this little piggy stayed home." But in reality, all these little piggies went to a CAFO. And I found footage behind the scenes of the Smithfield operating facility from the Human Society. Okay. Never mind. I saved you from seeing very disturbing images. Anyhow, we'll move on to the beef industry. The top 4 beef producers in the world own more than 80% of the market, which leaves only 28% to small sustainable farms and other smaller corporations as well. So they have a lot of influence and a lot of say on how the meat market is ran and distributed. This is a nicer image of what a beef CAFO may look like. As you can see, that's not mud, that's their feces that they live in. So it cultures a lot of foodborne illnesses such as E. coli and salmonella.
We have taken this benign, naturally flatulent vegetarian and turned it first into a cannibal. And when that didn't work, into a vampire. We made its brain and spinal cord into toxic sites. we've managed to turn its feces into something that routinely makes us sick and occasionally kills us. We've taken on the cow and used it as our experiment in developing the perfect food machine. In the process, we've created our very own Frankensteer.
Okay, so this clip is from a documentary called Frankensteer, and they actually study CAFOs for the beef industry in more detail. Quite an attractive cow, it's elevating at the mouth and whatnot. But he holds a lot of truth to what he said about cannibals and vampires. In order for these animals to put on more weight at a quicker rate, they feed them protein, and the source of this protein comes from their fellow cattle. So they grind up animal bones, blood, meat, and they feed it to these animals. So we've redesigned the way an herbivore actually feeds and made it into a carnivorous creature. It's not only humanely wrong what CAFOs are doing, they also have detrimental consequences on our environment and ultimately our health. According to the EPA, the wastes produced from CAFO facilities have contaminated over 35,000 miles in rivers in 22 states and has contaminated groundwater in 17 other states. This is killing millions of fish, degrading aquatic life, and it's also facilitating the transport of foodborne illnesses such as E. coli and salmonella. It's currently costing us $1.53 billion. Not only are they harming our water supply, they're also polluting our air. As you can see, they contribute 14% of global greenhouse gas emissions, which is more than the transportation sector. This is currently costing us $2 billion a year. What concerns me the most, though, is how it's indirectly harming our health and compromising our immune system. In order for these animals to gain more weight at a faster rate, they feed them antibiotics. According to a study by the Canadian Medical Association Journal, 70% of antibiotics in the United States are used in livestock feed. Some of these animals are not even sick to begin with. What happens is when they feed the animals antibiotics and they consume it, it gets stuck in the fat, and we consume that fat later on, so the antibiotics are in our system. If you abuse a drug, it'll bite you in the butt later on, which is what's happening right now. We're suffering from an inability to keep up with the amount of antibacteria-resistant bacteria strains, that are being developed, and as a result, we're getting sicker and people are dying from it as well. This is currently costing us $3 billion a year to keep up with. And all these numbers are adding up, and we can see that the cost of CAFOs is taking a toll on taxpayer dollars a year. This is $6 billion. And this includes the fee that they're given to, which is about $4 billion a year. Shockingly, all this that you've seen is very legal. And the problem is that this is still a debate nowadays because most people are not aware of what's going on, and they're not aware of the other options that exist to them. But you can educate yourself and you can educate others as well. Every time you purchase a product, you're casting a vote. So think about that. Read the food labels. Don't ignore them. They're there for a reason. You choose who you want to advocate. I just want to remind you what animals are supposed to look like, how they're supposed to be raised, and I don't want to turn you off from eating protein or meat ever again in your life. There is a more sustainable source out there, and that's the local food system.
Animals were just meant to be out on pasture at least part of their lives, or part of the day. Pasturing, rooting, foraging, mating, nursing, even competing for dominance. Giving an animal enough space to breathe, and preferably outside on grass, is not only moral and humane, it's certainly beneficial.
In this system, the local food system does have a lot more benefits. If you let animals live on pastures and eat off forage, their manure fertilizes the soil instead of releasing toxins into our environment. We wouldn't need the use of antibiotics in their feed. We wouldn't need to feed them such highly priced grain-fed based diets. And I want you to keep in mind that there are other resources out there. You can go to farmers markets, buy local produce. You can educate others on this topic as well. Research a little bit about it on your own. There's a lot of really good documentaries such as Food Inc., Farmageddon, Frankenstein. and steer, things that you can easily have access to on Netflix. And the resources are out there. But like I said, there's that veil, and the government doesn't want you to know the truth, because they knew if you really found out what the food you buy looks like, where it comes from, then you probably wouldn't buy it. And even though you may think, well, I don't eat fast food and this doesn't really apply to me, in reality, you're eating the food that's produced by the same system, whether it's McDonald's or ground beef from Walmart. So just keep that in mind. As Thomas Jefferson bluntly puts it, if people let the government decide what foods they eat and what medicines they take, their bodies will soon be in a sorry state as those souls that are under tyranny. So you have the power to decide. And remember, it can be as simple as choosing which egg to buy.